Deep within the sands of time, where pharaohs once ruled with an iron grip and the pyramids whispered secrets to the wind, lies a tapestry of ancient mysteries. Beyond the majestic pyramids and the allure of pharaohs' tombs lies a darker side, a realm of chilling truths that have long been shrouded in the mysteries of the Nile. When you think of ancient Egypt, creepy is definitely one of the best adjectives to describe it. Mummies, scarab beetles, the Book of the Dead, their obsession with cats. It's the stuff of nightmares and Hollywood blockbusters. But what if the creepiest secrets are still waiting to be uncovered? As we step into the dim corridors of the past, prepare to confront the top horrifying facts about ancient Egypt. Servants were sometimes put to death to be buried alongside their masters. Some individuals have heard the urban legend that the slaves of pharaohs and other significant characters in ancient Egyptian history were often ritually slain and buried with the corpse so that they may continue to serve their masters in the hereafter. This was done so that the servants could continue to be of service to their masters even after death. Many people in our modern world will try to convince you that this information about the Egyptians is wholly fictitious, but the reality is far more unsettling. Retainer sacrifices were once a common practice in ancient Egyptian culture. Toward the end of their civilization, however, the ancient Egyptians stopped the ritual of murdering retainers and burying their bodies in the tombs of their masters. However, those who were sacrificed in this manner would not always have the perception that they were being killed. The ancient Egyptians had a conflicted view of death and were fixated on the idea of living on after one's body had decayed. They were preoccupied with living things to a far greater extent than they were with dying people. It was considered a great honor for a servant to be permitted to accompany a strong character into the afterlife and continue to serve them if they were given the opportunity to die together with their master and be buried with them. Despite this, the fact that your future was dependent on the untimely passing of a person you worked for was most certainly unsettling and a source of anxiety. If you disrespected the sun god, they would immolate your entire being. In ancient Egypt, violent crime was fairly rare, but one of the most awful crimes you could commit was any form of offense or disrespect toward the sun god. If you vandalized or robbed a temple, committed any form of personal disrespect, or were otherwise found guilty of any offense related to the sun god, you were usually sentenced to be burned alive. This punishment was only reserved for the greatest of offenses and was usually accompanied by a ritual that sacrificed the individual to the gods. While the ancient Egyptians rarely practiced actual human sacrifices, this is one of the few exceptions. While burning alive is painful enough to begin with, it was considered the most horrific death of all by ancient Egyptians because of the ritual significance of the act. They believed strongly in preserving the physical body for life after death, and believed that destroying the person's physical body completely by burning would leave them with no vessel in the afterlife. While the gods could still technically intervene to help this person, it was about as terrifying a punishment as a believer in ancient Egyptian society could imagine. It was extremely common for ancient Egyptian police to beat confessions out of people. Even while ancient Egypt had a well-organized legal system and a group that served in essence as the country's police force, this does not indicate that things were particularly equitable in that time period. In the same way that it was commonplace in previous European communities, coercing confessions out of individuals was quite frequent. In fact, it was largely considered to be the norm. People would typically be beaten with sticks, most of the time on the bottoms of their feet, in order to get confessions from them. This kind of torture is known as bastinado. Those who were subjected to torture in order to get a confession out of them were expected to not only acknowledge to their wrongdoing, but also to reveal the whereabouts of everything they had stolen that may still be hidden, and to name all of their co-conspirators. After then, these individuals may be beaten in order to discover any other individuals who were involved. Unfortunately, much like many other flawed judicial systems, it will never be able to calculate the exact number of innocent individuals who may have been penalized for a crime because they were forced into confessing to something that they had not done. This is because these people were coerced into admitting to something that they had not done. When individuals are subjected to conditions of torture that are severe enough, they are willing to admit practically anything in order to put an end to the ordeal. As a result, false confessions are a tragically typical occurrence. Sometimes, if you were accused of a crime, your guilt would be decided by the magic of oracles. In the later days of ancient Egypt, the priesthood started to gain an increasing control on the daily lives of Egyptians and of the decisions made by the rulers of the land. The priests' influence and power over the common people increased continually over the years, and before long they were being consulted for far more than they ever had been before. Those in power knew better than to question the priests too much, as they were considered to be able to contact and gain the support of the gods, and also would be able to potentially influence large numbers of people to do their bidding. This meant that in the latter days of ancient Egypt, the priesthood now found itself involved in matters of court. They would bring in a statue of the sun god and set papyri before it with different options for important decisions. In court, they were generally two papers deciding innocence or guilt. The statue was supposed to turn toward the correct paper, showing the will of the gods. Of course, this gave the priests a chance to manipulate the statue's movements and essentially decided court cases based on their own opinions and whims. Unfortunately, this meant that many ancient Egyptians were at the whim of a con artist while in court, one who everyone believed, but who likely knew full well that he was making up all of the stuff about the god's will. Using birth control was an incredibly disgusting horror show. People nowadays will take pills, use condoms, or attempt to forecast their monthly cycles in order to prevent becoming pregnant when they are not emotionally or physically ready to start a family at that particular time. In addition, as many people are aware, methods for preventing unwanted pregnancies have been around for many thousands of years. The ancient Romans are supposed to have used a plant for birth control so regularly that they are responsible for the plant's complete extinction as a result of their usage of it. Researchers have unearthed evidence of sheepskin condoms from a long time ago. However, the majority of these approaches of birth control are rather sensible ways to deal with the issue, particularly when contrasted to the approaches that the ancient Egyptians used. They thought that a concoction made mostly of honey and crocodile excrement, which was subsequently applied to the vagina and considered to be an effective method for preventing pregnancy, was common practice in ancient Egypt. They came to the conclusion that this was an effective spermicide for some reason, despite the fact that it would really be more likely to enhance the likelihood of becoming pregnant. Given what they knew at the time, it is easy to see how they might have been persuaded to think that it had the potential to serve as an effective method of birth control. On the other hand, it is frightening to realize how often they would have had to come into direct physical touch with crocodile excrement on the most private regions of their bodies. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more captivating content, and ring the notification bell to stay updated on our future expeditions.